Hello and welcome everyone to Red Planet Live. I am your host, Ashton Zeth, and I am elated to be hosting the Mars Society's podcast and leading the conversation about human exploration of the universe and the future settlement of Mars. Now, as a longtime space enthusiast, I am passionate about STEM education and making humanity an interplanetary species. Thank you everybody for joining today and supporting Red Planet Live. I want to kick off today's episode. Just want to remind everyone that the 2025 International Mars Society Convention is scheduled for October 9th through the 11th at the University of Southern California, that's USC, in Los Angeles. Celebrating its 28th year, this global conference will focus on Mars exploration, human settlement planning, and cutting-edge space technologies. This year's theme is Mars, the Time Has Come, so fitting, which aligns with the U.S. government's recent announcement to prioritize a near-term human mission to Mars. Now, if you have groundbreaking research or innovative ideas to share, now is your chance. The Mars Society is officially calling for abstracts, so submit your proposals by June 30th to be considered as a speaker for the convention. Don't miss this opportunity to help shape the future of Mars exploration. You can visit the link below. There we go. You see it right there. You can find out more details about the conference, how to register, how to submit an abstract, and we look forward to seeing you there in October. All right. Well, for today, I have three special guests from the Mars Society leadership here to speak about some updates with the Mars Desert Research Station. So first up is James Burk, who is our executive director of the Mars Society, where he oversees all programs and initiatives like the Mars Desert Research Station, also known as MDRS, also oversees Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station and the Mars Technology Institute, and MTI. Now, James is a founding member of the Mars Society, and he has actively been involved since 1998, contributing to Mars advocacy and analog research. Previously, James served as a member of Crew 197 in 2018, and then again as commander of Crew 261 in May of 23. Now, in 2022, James co-founded Space Northwest, which is an organization that helps connect innovators in the Pacific Northwest to advanced space technology. Outside of Mars advocacy, James also had a 24-year career at Microsoft, holding roles in project management, development, and consulting. Lastly, he also holds a BS in Computer and Information Sciences from the University of Florida. James, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Ashton. It's great to be back on the show.
I know. What is this? 3 times now?
It is.
At least, yeah. It's always great when you come on the show and we get to chat again. So next up is Sergii Iakymov, whose career includes roles as an aerospace engineer, project manager, and quality manager at International Metal Source, as well as a research engineer and project coordinator at the Institute of Space Research in Ukraine. He holds a master's in aircraft control systems from the National Technical University of Ukraine and has significant experience in design engineering and research. Last year, Sergii did get to complete a 45-day NASA simulated Mars mission at the Human Exploration Research Analog Facility, known as HERA, at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The mission explored the physical and psychological demands of long-duration space missions, essential research for preparing future Mars-bound astronauts. Sergii, it's great to see you again as well. Thanks for joining.
Good to see you. Hello, everyone.
Excited to chat again. And lastly, we have Kay Radzik, who is an architect, which has also been involved with space advocacy and Mars mission simulations for over a decade. Born in Japan to a military family and having lived in various locations across the U.S. and Australia, Kay has made Reno, Nevada home for the last 25 years. Currently, Kay serves as the director of refits as the Mars Desert Research Station, overseeing upgrades and refurbishments to ensure the health, safety, and functionality of the station. For over a decade with the Mars Society, Kay has helped expand MDRS and served as an architect advisor and University Rover Challenge executive team member, contributing as a judge and a mission designer. Kay has also been part of the, was also part of the ambitious Mars One program, which aimed to establish a human settlement on Mars. Kay, thank you so much for joining.
Hi, thank you, Ashton. Hi, James and Sergii, and hi, audience.
Excited to be chatting with you all today. Thank you so much. Want to jump right into conversation. I know we're going to have a lot of topics to cover, specifically focus on MDRS. But before we get into that, want to start the way we start every episode, which is question of the day. Again, James, Sergii, you know how this goes. So it's just meant to be an icebreaker, no right or wrong answer. Just want to get your opinion. So today's question of the day is, if you could bring one personal food item with you on an analog mission, what would it be? You don't have to share it. It's just for you. The one little special thing. Okay, you're away from home. You're on your mission. Just that one little bit of enjoyment you get to keep to yourself. What would that food item be? James, you got one?
Yeah, I'd bring a dark chocolate bar. I'd have a little piece of that every night before I went to bed. Kind of a little reward for the end of the day. Sustainably sourced one, of course.
Yeah, right, of course. Yeah. Sergii, what about you?
Well, I would go with the chocolate as well, but like caramel chocolate or milk chocolate.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. Okay, what about you?
I don't really do sweets, but soy sauce. Lots of soy sauce.
Okay. It's not an answer I was expecting. Soy sauce. Okay. Is it like a put it on everything?
Oh, yeah. I have I love the umami. I put it on eggs, rice, whatever, you name it. Spinach, soy sauce.
All right. I like that answer. I would have to be in the same boat as James and Sergii. I would also say chocolate, but probably chocolate with peanut butter, like a chocolate peanut butter cup. That would probably be the one, guilty pleasure food I'd bring with my on my analog mission. So we're 3 for 4 on chocolate there.
I think Kay's on the right track though, because condiments, things like hot sauce, are super important on analog missions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to forget that.
Yeah, well, we've all been, sequestered there at the hab, and trust me, you want to spice up the food.
I think that's a great place to start for our conversation. And before we jump in, a reminder, everybody listening, if you have questions, please put those in the chat. We'll sprinkle those in throughout the conversation. But let's keep on the food topic. And I'm sure that everybody thinking about going on an analog mission, they're thinking, where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? So talk to me about the food situation. For those that don't know what an analog mission is like, talk to us about food. What do you bring with you? What do you prepare when you're there? What can somebody about going on an analog mission and the food situation?
I can take this first, then maybe you guys can add to it. For us, we do a mix of shelf-stable food, so things that you'd have on hand at home, things like pastas and rices. We have a lot of that on hand, but then we also have some dehydrated foods that are kind of special. The one that is my favorite is the chunks of ground beef that you can rehydrate, and they heat up as you rehydrate them. So it's kind of neat. You can almost cook with them a little bit. But there's all kinds of options that we give our crews. And during my mission, which I hope we'll talk a little bit more about tonight, we had mostly a crew from France. So we were kind of trying to outdo each other with cuisine. We were making crepes. I was making New Orleans jambalaya for them. And we had a lot of fun with it. But there's a lot of things you could do with simple ingredients, with just peas and carrots and rice. There's a lot of magic you can do there if you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you taking a lot of the food with you? Like you've got a crate of dry things that you're taking with you, or fresh vegetables, fresh produce? Are you bringing any of that with you, or everything's there when you get to MDRS while you're about to start your mission?
It's kind of up to the crews what they want to do, but we do provide sort of a base level of a full set of ingredients for them to survive for 2 weeks. But often crews will bring their favorites. I asked my crew, write down everything that you absolutely can't live without for 2 weeks, and we'll make sure we have that somewhere on the list. And so for me, it was coffee. I wanted to make sure we had lots of French roast, and we went through it too. That's important. Food's important for morale on a crew.
Oh yeah, James, I think there's something to be said. Like us Pacific Northwest people, drinking coffee is I can't function or go a day without it. So yeah, that would be one of my absolute requirements as well. Sergii, what do you think? Anything else about specifically food? Because of course, people are always going to wonder, hey, I'm living in this small confined space with people maybe I know or I don't know very well. and like food is the one thing you can look forward to, and that's some comfort and control in your day a little bit. So what's the food situation like, do you think?
Of course, food is always could bring us joy, but that is something what is very difficult to accomplish, to make sure that all crew members have enough food to what they like. But well, in my experience, I been in 2 different analogs, and every time is something is missing, or something like one was the hair, there was a lot of sweets, and there was too much of sweets, for example, and we always wanted something else, and we before the exiting the mission, we always been like writing list what we want to eat, and it's always like, for example, could be just simple mashed potato and a steak, or go somewhere eat somewhere with something nice, or I wanted chicken because I didn't have any chicken, or I don't want to eat any what is this energy bars anymore in my life, because there was too much of them during the mission. So it all depends on your own preferences, but it's never enough, I would say.
Yeah, you always forget something, and you can't just run out to the store to pick up that one ingredient that you forgot. So how do you get creative? Kay, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that. You only have so many supplies. How do you get creative and make some food that you're gonna look forward to, that you're gonna feel nourished on, that's gonna appease everybody's appetite?
All I have to say is that I have never, in all these years, been on a crew. I maintain the place, I work on upgrades, and so I get to hear everything from the outside. And I always recommend people bring herbs and spices and things that they personally would like to see, because part of my job is also to prep for the season, and we go and bring all the food, all the prep food, things like that, to the station, and I'm like, freeze dried this, freeze dried that, and I'm like, wow, they better be prepared, because we're trying to be in an analog station. You want to recreate and emulate what would go on in a 2-week mission. So we try to encourage people to utilize the more shelf stable food items, and get creative with that as much as possible, because you're not going to have fresh meat and fresh vegetables and things like that on a mission. So I always like to sit back and see how creative people get with that bland looking freeze-dried stuff. But I've heard some people had really good recipes.
Yeah, I mean, for my crew, we did it for 2 weeks. We did some preparation ahead of time, but we did try to kind of make it a fun thing where we were trying to outdo each other and impress each other. And you had basically, more than half the crew had pretty good culinary skills. Like, I know we have a lot of student crews that show up and they kind of don't know what to do sometimes with all the options we give them. And that just comes down to, making sure you guys read all the materials we give you ahead of time and ask questions. There's a cookbook out there on Amazon too for MDRS that April Andreas wrote years ago. So, but yeah.
That link and put that in the chat there. Speaking of, being prepared, getting an opportunity to connect with your crew, how does a crew typically prepare for their mission?
Sergei, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, typically after you already know that who is coming and date, stuff like that, we want to make sure that they get familiar with like all materials what we provide. Like, our main material is a handbook. It has all information about the station, operations, reports, safety, security, and stuff like that. We need to make sure that everyone gets those materials and they read them through. And we always remind everyone, ask questions. Please do not hesitate. If you not sure what is this, just come on and ask me. And also training. When everyone arrives on site, we make sure that we walk everyone through the station and we talk about every single system, how everything works, and what to do if it doesn't. So it's just to make sure that all information is available and it could be accessible anytime.
Well, just like on, I imagine, a real mission, things break, things don't go as planned. So as part of the preparation, do crews develop some sort of contingency, or maybe is there directions in that handbook that like, hey, if something breaks, here's how to fix it. Here's how to pivot and, extend your mission without having to, call for help, because, notice when you're in simulation, nobody else is coming out there to fix it for you. So how does the team prepare for those type of situations?
We have some basic information what to do in case something breaks, but of course it's impossible to predict what can break and input all information into handbook. So we constantly communicate with the crew engineer and crew commander to make sure that they have all information what they need to deal with one or another issue.
Yeah. Walk me through, what does communication look like? Is there one person that's responsible for communication? Is they're talking to, mission control? Who is it that they're communicating with on the other end? And just like on Mars, is there a delay in the communication?
We actually don't have mission control. We call it mission support, just because we prefer that crews to be in control of their own research and just provide them support for safety and everything else. And we always have one person on site who are responsible for safety and operation. And also we have a team who they operate online, and they always read reports and provide their perspective based on their expertise. If there are any kind of issue with the equipment, or they need additional information for the research and stuff like that.
When you're on a crew, we have these walkie-talkie radios. We have two different sets. One when we're out on EVA in suits, out and a couple kilometers away from the station, and then one set we only use internally inside the campus. And that one, we can actually radio the mission support on-call person if we have questions or have an issue. And like Sergei said, it's usually real time. We kind of think of it like the crew's in sim on the ground, and maybe there's an orbiting person that they can call that's more immediate feedback versus going all the way back to Earth. If we're going to have conversations with our friends and family back home, usually we have mission rules to put in a delay of whatever it is at the time. During my mission, it was like 14 minutes. Yeah.
Do crews decide if they're going to do that? Like, do they come in with an understanding and an agreed upon, like, we're going to act out this simulation with that delay? Is that something that they negotiate and they decide on as a crew before they start their mission? Or they're like, no, we're here for it, but we're not necessarily going to put that delay in communication with family?
That's what's great about our program, is it's really up to the crew how they want to work. And there's plenty of reasons to break sim and have real-time conversations. If they're doing scientific research, they need to work with others off-site for. Okay. We do have Starlink now, so we have high bandwidth internet, and you can still operate within a delay regime pretty well using email and one-way communications, one-way videos, one-way voice messages. I do that all the time, just working normally a lot of times. But it's kind of up to the crew what they want to do. We do have rules in the handbook, but then we have guidelines, and it's up to the crew commanders and the crews for some of those things. And one of them would be if they wanted to have, like, how to work in this delay. You guys are on Mars. You can't be Skyping or having a Zoom call with your family at night back home, or laying on your bed and watching stuff in real time from Earth. You can simulate things that we might have on Mars, but we encourage people to have to take the simulation realistically, seriously. So yeah,
take it as serious as possible. Well, James and Sergei, obviously I've had the opportunity to speak with you before, and we've talked about your experience and your role with MDRS and the Mars Society. But Kay, wanted to talk a little bit about your specific role. What does Director of Refits mean? What are your responsibilities at MDRS?
Well, basically, it's like a refit is a refurbishment, updating, just working on the compound. I call it a compound. It's not. It didn't used to be a compound. I've seen it grow so much in the last 10 years, from just a lander and a tiny little greenhouse to, over the years, now we have 9 structures there. We have now the HAB, the new greenhouse, the repair and maintenance module. We have 2 observatories. We have a science dome. That's wonderful. And I helped build that too back in 2015. And we have a solar array. We also have 2 trailers for our director, our staff, and our volunteers. And I think that if you even now look at all the aerial photos, you will see how it has grown over the years. And so basically, when we have projects we need to work on behind the scene, I call it back of house. James and the management team of the MDRS, we usually go over projects that we're going to do, and I get together, protocols, items, and things like that, lists that we need, and then we do a call for volunteers, and we like volunteers with specialties and things like that. It depends on the project. Like last year, we did refurbish the HAB. We repainted. We put a brand new shower. We ripped out the old shower, put the new shower in. So a lot of the stuff we do is sometimes major, sometimes not, but it's always to upgrade the campus to be what it is. It's a premier analog station. And granted, some of the structures there are over 20 years old. So it's really important for us to maintain it and make it safe for everybody that gets to use it and live in it and be part of the whole MDRS experience.
It's a really special place to be. If you've never been out there, Ashton, I've been trying to get you to come out.
We got to get you out there.
But it's a really special place. And Kay's right. It's a harsh environment. These structures need maintenance. We need to make up the improvements, and we also want to expand the capabilities of the campus. We want the best scientists to be able to come and do their world-class research there and provide them all the tools they're used to having in the science dome, for example. So yeah, it's a really special place. I mean, when you pull up to it after you've been traveling, you feel like you're somewhere special. You're out in space somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be one of the things, I asked about, is talking a little bit about like how MDRS has evolved over the years. I mean, it's been operating in Utah for over 20 years now. Besides like the physical, landscape and the footprint of MDRS, how has it changed or evolved over the years? I imagine some of the research that happens there as the facilities are continuing to be upgraded, the type of research that you can do starts to change as well.
I mean, I know what comes to mind for me is just the quality of the crews is very high right now. Like the research they bring to our station and do is world-class research. It's not like people LARPing and playing astronaut. Like that's a real misconception we have that we try to combat. The people that, for the most part, the people that come out here are professionals, or space professionals. And out of the 2,000 crew members we've had in the last 23 years now, 4 of which have become astronauts. That's a 1 in 500 chance of becoming an astronaut by going through our program. There's nothing like that out there that's available to the general public. And so, like Kay's right, we are a premier analog facility. There's a lot of analog facilities in the world. We were the first to develop these at the Mars Society. The Flashline station was the first, and this MDRS was the second. And there's over a dozen around the world now. But MDRS has had the most crews. We've had over 300 crews now. and over 2,000 people. So, I think that, like I said, I've noticed a huge difference in just the quality of science done. And we've kept the station up with that, with providing more facilities, providing more, expanding the footprint of the campus, adding new capabilities. We have 2 observatories there, a sun-facing observatory and a robotic observatory that's operated by a college. And they've done all kinds of work with that over the last several years. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot we can point to as real science that has come out of this program now.
Yeah. Can you give any examples? I'm sure that, those listening are wondering the same thing, just like I am. What are some of the examples of the research that the crews that come and do research? What is that they're researching? What are they testing? And what do they do with the results of that research?
Well, so I can talk a little bit about my crew. We did a lot of work with spirulina, and my crew was in May of 2023. So about a little under 2 years ago. And we developed a contraption called a photobioreactor, which was essentially a way to keep a colony of algae alive. You can see it right there. It's basically a do-it-yourself kind of contraption we made. There's a big plastic bag of algae, about 5 liters big, and we had an active colony in there alive for over a year. But we started it during our 2-week mission in May of 2023. And we used that spirulina algae in a couple of different experiments during the mission. We used it as a biostimulant for plants in the green hab. So we were able to actually allow tomato seeds to sprout in Mars regolith for the first time out at MDRS, as well as keeping all the other plants healthy and alive while we were there. So that was one aspect of research we worked on. We also did some robotics experiments. So that's more like biotech and maybe life support. That photobioreactor could be a precursor of a closed loop life support system where you're recycling, carbon dioxide into oxygen through a photosynthesis type process. We were also doing robotics research. We were not only flying drones and testing out a new drone that was developed to fly out in the desert, we also were working with a rover that was a unique wheeled contraption with 2 sails. It was a wind-powered rover, and we had a really talented expert for robotics, Erin Kennedy, on the crew, and that was her experiment. And she tested it multiple ways, did some testing in the high winds in the afternoons during EVAs, and then even rolled it down a hill, did some destructive testing to it at the end of the mission. So that's another aspect. A lot of crews come and do medical, psychological type things. We had an experiment where we were taking blood samples and using paper cards, which was kind of a new process for the University of Paris. And Audrey, who was our medical officer, she just graduated and got her paper published from our mission just in the last couple of weeks. And so she did this. She basically created this new process to collect blood and urine samples in space and then store them for long durations using paper media instead of traditional like plastic bags and test strips and stuff like that. That would be hard for astronauts to do and to store and bring back to Earth. This was a way to kind of do it in a compact, efficient way. We also did some testing of medical devices as part of what she did. So those were a few of our experiments, and we were a crew that had a lot of time to prepare because our mission was delayed due to COVID. So we had actually 4 years to prepare, and we added a couple people to the crew that had experiments. In general, a lot of geology is done out there. It's a fantastic environment for geology. With folks, especially some of the earlier crews, would do a lot of surveys of the area and write papers about the geology of the area, look for extremophiles, look for different types of lichens and other life that survives well out there, and write papers about how that might, apply to space. So there's a lot of different aspects of research. There's a very big psychological and human factors area that several PhDs have published in by being on a crew. I could think of Inga who went to the University of Iowa She's back, I think, in Europe now. But Inga Papavite was a human factors researcher, and she looked at all the crew dynamics over several missions and looked at who had the most power on a given crew, like who had the most influence. It wasn't always the commander. It usually was the most knowledgeable technical or subject matter expert. And she also looked at like men and women on crews and had some insights into that as well. So stuff like that, those are some of the areas, and we want to level up all those. We want to provide facilities and help and support for crews to come and do research in all those areas.
No, that's so great, and we're gonna come back. You mentioned specifically the geology, so that's what I'm gonna ask you about next. But want to make sure, Sergii or Kay, is there anything else that you wanted to add specifically about the research that's happening at MDRS before we get to a fun video?
I just can echo James that we get support a lot of research for human factor. We have every season we have 2 crews from Europe coming. They do some research for ESA. For example, they do a lot of human factor technology demonstration for medical teams in ESA, like augmented reality or AI assistance, for example. We have 2 crews coming every year from Purdue University in West Lafayette campus, and they bring all sorts of research like technology demonstration, some human factor, and a lot of geology experiments. And we also have Mars Society crews. We call them Mars Society crews when we assemble individual applicants, and they bring a lot of like journalists, experts. They bring a lot of filmmakers, and we do a lot of kind of stuff, not just for science, sometimes just for outreach.
Sometimes we have artists in residence on cruise, and they just do their own, like, they write poetry, or they make amazing watercolors, or they do photography. We had a crew member who was a really good photographer, our crew journalist, Chris Davidson, and she would, every night or every morning when the light was perfect, she would always get real excited and want to do an EVA. And when we were out of sim after the mission, she was always rounding everybody up to take photos when the light was perfect at twilight. So yeah, there's a lot, because it's such a fantastic environment out there. There's a lot that an artist can get from having that experience.
And Sergei, haven't you had crews of just teachers? And and sometimes some crews are just students, like high school students with chaperones or whatever, and they do their own sort of simulation and things like that. So there's a lot of teaching going on too.
Yeah, we do have a project with NASA. It's NASA Spaceward Bond for Utah teachers, where we bring teachers to the MDRS for short simulation. They go on EVAs, they live inside the habitat, and do like simple geology research, and they make presentations and transfer that knowledge to their students.
Yeah, one of our ambassadors, Jonathan Nalder, the EduNaut, was one of those teachers that got to go on crew mission for Space Rebound. I was going to ask, the word geology has come up a couple times at this point. So tell us about why the desert in Utah. What about this specific location is significant? And then after that, I think we've got a video we can show of the landscape as well.
We did the Mars Society back in 2000 and 2001, so a long time ago. They did a big survey of the whole U.S. where we would want to put a station, there was several different sites they looked at, but this one was the one that was most Mars-like on both just looking at it visually on the surface, but also geologically, and it was isolated. It's 2 hours from the nearest large city, Grand Junction, Colorado. 4 hours from Salt Lake City. So it's an isolated environment as well. But it's as we've been operating there for all this time, for 23 years, mean, now we know it's a perfect Mars analog. It's got all these different types of Mars terrain, some lunar terrain as well, which is really useful for some crews if they want to do lunar activities. But yeah, it's held up very well, that decision to have the station be where it is.
Okay, let's see. We've got a video. Let's show that, and then we can take a look. So for those that have Wow, that's so cool. I love that video.
That was awesome. I have never seen that.
Shout out to Erin Kennedy, who was on my crew. She edited that video. The footage was from drone footage taken by another crew member of mine, Julianne Villamasson. Yeah, that video is a fantastic way to just feel the mood of what it's like to be on an EVA out there. There's nothing like it. And that's one other reason why we're the best analog station, is because we have this amazing terrain to go explore.
Tell me a little bit about what an EVA is like. So obviously, we saw in the video the crew is in suits. They're going outside of the hab and they're doing some sort of research. Maybe they're doing some geological testing, researching. But what is that like? How far can they go? Are they still in communication with the other crew? What is that experience like?
I'll tell you how it exactly went for me. Sergii was my mission support lead at the time. Sergii, you can correct me if we've changed anything in the last 2 years, but we would file the night before, we would file a plan of what we were going to do for the EVA the next morning. And we would say, okay, 4 of us are going to go out. We're going to take the Curiosity rover and we're going to go 2 kilometers north to look at the Sea of Shells. And, we'll plan to be out for about an hour and a half. Here's the rough time. We'll suit up and go outside and then come back and file that plan and put the coordinates of where we're going to go on the map. And then that looks good. Okay, great. The next morning we go ahead and do that plan. You wake up. It's kind of almost like a scuba diving trip, if you've ever done one of those. You wake up and you eat breakfast and you gear up. and you're helping each other put everything on because there's backpacks and helmets, and you're screwing hoses onto the helmet, and then you do radio checks, making sure everyone could hear each other. Even the people within suits need to hear each other before we go outside. That's a safety issue. We want to make sure that everyone has communication. We also practice taking off the suits quickly. Usually like the first day of a mission, we'll qualify everybody on EVAs before we actually do real ones. We'll do a short one where we walk outside and come back. But when we're into the mission and into the normal operations, yeah, it's like you gear up. It takes you about 20 minutes to gear up. You go outside. We wait for I think 2 minutes in the airlock before we go outside, and then you have to remember to take with you anything you're going to need out there. So, drone, camera, your phone maybe if you want to do things with your phone, like take video or record audio or take notes or anything. You need to, and some people would like glue a tablet to their wrist as part of their suit. I had sort of a Batman utility belt that I could hang tools on. And then once we get out there, we get in the rovers and we drive. And usually, if there's 4 of us, we have 2 rovers. So we have the lead rover and the rover in the back. And just you have hand signals we kind of came up with just to make sure we knew when to stop, when to change into 4-wheel drive, things like that. And then you're out there. The time goes fast. Like when you're out there, you have a suit on, you feel like you're out in space. You feel like you're exploring another planet, and you kind of forget after a while that it's a simulation. But we would have amazing experiences. We flew drones with suits on. We looked for all kinds of different rocks, found like gypsum. Crew number 1, we found a dinosaur bone. Robert always likes to talk about that. That showed up in his Facebook feed recently. He has a memory, and he tweeted that out again. That's kind of what it's like. And then you come back inside, you're exhausted. The crew that was not on the EVA is back in the HAB, and they're doing HABCOM. So they're making sure you're safe. They're watching the map. They're checking in with you on the radio. And then they're also kind of cleaning up inside the HAB, maybe getting lunch ready for the people that come back. And then when you take off all that gear, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're thirsty. But it's a lot of fun. And we would do 2 of those a day. We would usually have half the crew go in the morning and half go in the afternoon. And so that was a good cadence for us that we did. We think we did 19 EVAs on our 12-day mission, 12 sol mission. Okay.
Lots of opportunity. How long does it typically take to feel like you're actually on Mars? I mean, maybe the first day you're kind of getting used to it. You're still kind of getting used to your crew. You're staying in this unfamiliar place. How long does it take before you're like, oh, I'm on the surface of Mars right now, and I'm, however many million miles away from home?
What I've heard, I mean, for me, it was almost instant. It was like we woke up and we were in sim. That's kind of how we did it. We all got there on a Sunday and got settled in. And then when we woke up the next morning, we were in sim. And so it felt real. It felt like we were living out on Mars for 2 weeks. We were very comfortable. We could have kept going, but we had to go home.
People didn't want to go home.
I think we were pretty tired during my mission. We had packed a lot in, but we were still we were just good at it. I thought that crew in particular was 7 professionals that had planned for 4 years, and 2 people on it were veterans. So we were able to get everyone up to speed pretty quickly, do a lot of safety drills, keep everybody safe, and do some advanced stuff towards the end where we were doing 4 and 5 kilometer EVAs to the edges of the map at the end of the mission.
Yeah. What's that experience like for you, Sergii and Kay? Like, you guys are not there necessarily on mission or in simulation, but Kay, I think you said it was back of the house. What's that experience like for you to support those crews that are there on mission?
Talk to Sergii. He's there on site during the season. I go out there twice a year, before the season and after the season. So I don't know what it's like.
Well, the experience could be different. First of all, it's not easy job to work on your own in the remote environment in the middle of the desert. And it's very interesting one. And you need just to be prepared for any kind of contingencies, what could happen. And remember that, like, even if something happened medically, the nearest hospital is 1.5 hours away. And just stay healthy, eat good, sleep enough, and be happy, do your work.
Okay, be happy, do your work. Well, yeah, I think
be prepared too. I mean, I think you get more into a mission if you have everyone on the same page going in. There's always going to be things that you learn while you're there, but making sure you've brought things that you want that each crew member can do while they're there. That's important, I think, to build like a set of activities that keeps everybody happy and safe and occupied.
Yeah, each crew member has a job, a responsibility, a purpose, something that they're working on specifically for them.
Yes.
Yeah, and what happened with us was we found that we wanted to, there were certain parts of what we were doing we wanted to emphasize. So when we saw that our robotics engineer was trying to do this whole testing regime with her rover, we kind of started planning EVAs around her, making sure she was able to get the data she needed for her project during our EVA. So we would say, okay, well, how long is it going to take you to do that? And does it matter where you are when you do that? Could you bring that little package out to this location or that location, which would be better, kind of thing. So by having each crew member bring something to the table, you kind of can work together better. You all can kind of advocate for what is important to you.
I was hearing and poking around on the website earlier today, just refamiliarizing myself with MDRS, and I saw that there's a campaign happening right now. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes. So this week we're launching a new capital campaign for the Mars Society that's focused on MDRS. So what that means is we're raising money for MDRS. The goal is for us to raise $250,000, and that'll go towards upgrading the station, making some needed upgrades to our power system and the structures, making sure that they can continue to be safe and secure for years to come. I mean, we've had 23 years of volunteer work led by folks like Kay that have gotten us here. And the station's an amazing place, and we want to make sure we can keep it going for another 23 years and beyond. And so, we're starting this campaign. You see the QR code up there on the screen, but we're asking everyone to help out. No matter what level you pledge at for this campaign, you will get a Mars Society membership. You'll get 1 year added if you're an active member, or if you're an expired member, you can just pledge to this campaign and you'll be active again for a year. So any level, and that's the first time we've ever done that. So the $25 level is actually a 50% discount for most people on a membership. And also we have some really interesting pledge levels for this campaign. We've done campaigns like this before. We had one for the Mars Technology Institute about more than a year ago now, about 14 months ago, that was successful. And then we also had a couple of these for the VR campaign, or the VR project, in years past. So this year, this is our big capital campaign. At the $500 level, you get one of these handmade MDRS models that a volunteer, Lindsay Pastor, created for us. These are it's mounted on a little ceiling tile, tile that has Mars regolith simulant. We actually give you a little bag of Mars regolith along with the model. But it's a really great high fidelity model of our main hab. This is what we have for both the MDRS and Flashline. It's this habitat design, and it's modeled on Robert Zubrin's Mars Direct plan from the Case for Mars. It's the tuna can hab that you would send to Mars, that you'd live in on your way to Mars in space, and then you'd land, and that would be your habitat while you're on Mars. So that's at the $500 level. We also, for the first time, we're offering a VIP mission for folks that pledge at $5,000. They get to come to MDRS for a 5-day minimum mission. And depending on how many of these we're able to organize, I will command one of them, and potentially more than one. But we will make sure that these folks get a great experience at the MDRS. They learn how to do EVAs, and they learn all about the facilities, and they're able to stay there for 5 days. So that's basically the meat of a whole crew, a 2-week mission there. Mm-hmm. So that's a pledge level. We also have a couple other pledge levels. If you're on a budget, if you just want to help us out a little bit, we have a T-shirt at $50. We have a patch at $25. We also have a friend of MDRS level at $100, which you get both of those. So you also get the T-shirt, the patch, the Mars Society membership, but then you'll also be part of a new community we're forming, Friends of MDRS. And we're going to have that community have additional offers and rewards in the future. So we will have that community get discounts on missions in the future. We'll announce some things about that as we promote this campaign. But that's one new pledge level that we have now. And then I think another one we have is $250. You can get one of Robert Zubrin's books autographed and inscribed by him. So he'll write your name and a little message to you in the book. So we hope everyone in the community can help support the Mars Desert Research Station with this campaign. We've designed the campaign page for people that have never heard of the Mars Society before to understand kind of what we're doing, who we are. One of the pieces of feedback I get a lot is what we do is so technical, it takes a little bit of time to explain. We should have better marketing. We should try to have a better elevator speech for what we do. Well, this is kind of our attempt to distill a web page into something that a newbie can understand pretty quickly about what the Mars Desert Research Station is and why it's important. And especially now, Mars is right there. I mean, we have a national goal now of humans on Mars. And so, we're not ready to live on Mars until we're able to practice that on Earth. And the Mars Desert Research Station is the perfect place to do that. And it's also a way for everyone around the world to participate. We're all inclusive. We have had crews from many different countries around the world, and many universities around the world, and crews made up of international complements as well. So we want this program to be sustained for a long time, and that's the whole point of this campaign.
Very exciting. Okay, well, I know that as soon as we finish this, I'm going to make sure that I share that on social media. Go ahead and donate and help support. So there's a couple of ways that people could support MDRS. They could donate to the campaign, but they could also volunteer. And Kay, I know that you've been responsible for kind of organizing or participating in some of those work parties and helping coordinate those volunteers. So what could a volunteer do to help support MDRS?
Well, firstly, it depends on the projects that we have going. Every October, we usually have refits, and it could be something as mundane as just prepping the station for the crew season, or it could be special projects like painting the hab, or putting a new toilet in, or whatever. We spent time putting crawl space, ventilation, little things like that to work on the station. And it's not just working on the hab, it's working on the station as a whole to keep it, upgraded and functioning properly. So usually by the before the URC, which is at the end of May, usually we get together the management team and we come up with some projects, and then the social media for MDRS and the Mars Society puts out a call for volunteers, and we kind of go over because every year we don't know really what we're going to be doing. So expect to hear some social media, blurbs, probably towards the June and July. And then, we'd like to give our volunteers. We've had volunteers from Brazil, from England, from all over the world. And usually it's just like maybe 5 to 12 people. It depends on the project. But it's been a wonderful experience in the last 10 years because I've made so many good friends, and these volunteers have made friends in and of themselves, and they've come together with projects of their own that they want to work on. And basically they just propose a project, and then we go, okay, we can work it in and see how it goes, and with James's approval. And usually the crews really work together very well. It's usually kind of construction-y, and we get kind of messy and dirty and grody and stinky and farty and stuff like that. But it's like a crew. It is a crew. It's a refit crew, but we're not in sim and things like that. And we usually come up with some really good stuff and keep the place going.
I love that. I love that there's multiple ways that you can get involved. Not everybody can go on an analog mission, but you can support the effort. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I see we do have a question here, and I want to make sure that we give an opportunity for questions. So Dan Carlos asks, how windy does it get? And what time of the year does it rain? Mild, strong, snow, or lightning?
Well, I can answer the question.
Yeah.
The highest wind what we detected was, I believe, 50 miles per hour, which is really strong. And it almost ripped off one of our tunnels between buildings. And now you can see marks because it's out of its shape. And for example, what else? For rains, it doesn't rain very often. Usually just mild rain. Sometimes it floods, but usually it's during this off season, which is summer. And if it rains, it becomes very muddy and not just hard to drive. It's really hard to walk on that Mars soil. And snows very rarely. This season we only had one snowfall. It was like snow only tiny bit, and it melted right away. The last season we had snow 3 times. It also melted right away.
Okay. So you got.
Also, I just want to say.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It is very arid there. So even if you go and visit and look at the station from the observation deck, bring water. It's very dry, and depending on it's very deceiving because we're like at 5,000 feet, and it looks sunny, but it feels cool, but you will get sunburned. So we always go through our whole spiel about if you're going to visit, or if drive through, or be part of a crew or volunteer, think of the upper desert. It's very arid and dry. Lots of chapstick.
That's a good recommendation. Lots of chapstick. I love that. Well, I know we're coming up on time here, so I figure, the way that we end our conversation is, what does the future look like for MDRS? How do you want to continue to see it evolve? And, are there some goals or aspirations for MDRS in the future?
We want to level up the science. We want to make sure that we can provide opportunities to everybody to come and be a crew member, to be a volunteer, to participate however they can in what we're doing. And we want to help us get to Mars. We want to help humanity settle Mars. That's what this is all about, is preparing for that future.
I love it.
Yeah, I will echo with James, and I see MDRS as training platform and testing platform for all kind of space exploration.
All right, Kay. Anything else? Any updates, aspirations, goals for MDRS in the future?
Oh, we just have to keep in mind that this is being an analog, that we want to maintain its place as an upstanding and modern facility. So that's why, during our refits, we're always upgrading and things like that. Because remember, it's a really great challenge to want to go become an interplanetary species, but you can't do that. Nobody is going to Mars until we can train in analog facilities like this in isolation and learn how to how to survive, not just survive and not just live, but to thrive. And that is what we're all about.
I love it. That's a great place to wrap up the conversation. I wanted to make sure I mentioned, James, I did finally fill out my application. I know I'm like 2 years behind. I've been working on it, but I did fill it out, and I think that a future episode of Red Planet Live would be fun if I was interviewing my crewmates at MDRS and talking to them about their experience. So we'll try to get that coordinated. I think we got to work on some timing, some dates there. That's the next thing to get figured out. But I finally completed, and it would be awesome to go on a mission in the future.
Sounds great. We'd love to have you, Ashton.
Well, thank you so much, James, Sergei, Kay. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure to meet with all of you and chat again about MDRS. For those that are still with us, reminder, make sure you scan this QR code, help us support MDRS and contribute to the campaign. Yeah, there you go, James. I love it. And what level is that for the model?
This is the $500 wooden model. So we also have patches for $25. We have a t-shirt and several other levels, but check it out. And all levels give you a 1-year membership in the society.
There you go. You heard it first. Well, again, thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate all of your time and answering our questions. Quick thank you to our PR director, Michael Stoltz. Thank you to Leah helping us behind the scenes. And thank you everybody who tuned in today and participating in the conversation. We're going to wrap up today like we always do. We know this. The best is yet to come. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.